issue, and I think when you look at the record, you will see that members of the CBC, we have supported 99.9% of the president's agenda. But in addition to that, we've worked with the president where there are areas that we've disagreed. He knows where there are areas that we've disagreed, and we've worked to try to reach consensus on those areas.
NBC News. If the Senate passes a version of the bill that looks a lot like the president's compromise, would the CBC be okay with being able to offer amendments when the Democrats brought that to the floor? Is that something y'all talked about in your meeting yesterday?
Well, we're going to look at what takes place and determine our strategy as this evolves. But certainly there are a variety of legislative strategies and options that we're considering. But at this point, we don't know exactly how this will play out. Here, and then we'll come back over here.
Yesterday, Mr. Clyburn talked about changing the estate tax to the House version and adding some energy tax provisions, which it looks like the Senate is planning to do. If those are the only changes that the bill comes to the House with, how will the Black Caucus vote on it?
Well, again, there has been no discussion about how these things are going to be paid for. It's Oprah Winfrey and Santa Claus. Everybody gets a tax cut. How are we going to pay for it? The Republican budget, long-term budget, that was put on the floor about last year, included a repeal of Medicare. A slow repeal. They replaced it with a voucher that doesn't keep up with medical inflation, and slowly, in 20 or 30 years, you're down to about 50% of what the Medicare actually costs. I mean, they slowly let Medicare wither on the vine. That is one way that that the Republicans, and most of the Republicans, voted for the Ryan budget. And Ryan is not some backbencher. He's going to be chairman of the Budget Committee. His budget included an effective repeal of Medicare. Now, if that's how they intend to pay for these things, then I think a lot of people might decide that they're against the tax cuts. So, I mean, you're asking these questions in the abstract. How would you like a tax cut? Without the other side of the equation, how do you propose to pay for it? And there has been no discussion, other than the Simpson-Bowles proposal, which gives you an idea of what 3.8 looks like, 3.8 trillion, what it looks like. And the $100 billion of defense spending, that's going to end up, that $100 billion is going to end up somewhere else. Because I've been here 18 years. We have never cut the defense budget. So that's another $100 billion that's got to come from somewhere else. How are we going to pay for it?
Over here.
Robert Caucus with National Review. Vice President Biden has visited the Senate and the House. Would you like to see President Obama in coming days come consult with House Democrats?
Yes, we'd like to see that, and I'm sure that the president would hear the same message that we delivered to Vice President Biden. Right here.
I'm just curious if you believe that this overall proposed deal from President Obama is a bad deal for African Americans, and if so, why?
Well, we've only seen half the deal. We've seen all these tax cuts that are very popular. Everybody likes a tax cut. How are they paid for? Are you gonna repeal health care, save $1 trillion? Are you going to cut back on education? How is it paid for? I mean, we're only hearing half of the proposal. Simpson-Bowles gives you an idea that to come up with 3.8 trillion, and we're on track. If the president's in the Republican presidential proposal passes, we're on track to essentially extend them all. I mean, the idea that you're going to extend them into a presidential year and then cut them up. We already established the principle that failure to extend the tax cut constitutes a tax increase. And if we can't do that, if we can't cut them off now, what is the chance we're going to be able to do it in the middle, increase taxes in the middle of a presidential congressional election? The Tea Party will be intimidating all of the Republicans into getting in line to make these things permanent, and they'll be running like Santa Claus. What are the Democrats going to do? I mean, the last presidential candidate that I remember running on a platform of increasing taxes was Walter Mondale, and that was not a successful strategy. So you're just asking half of the equation. Our concern is how they're going to be paid for, and I think you can pretty well guarantee that if we extend all these tax cuts, the estate tax, $60 billion here for 2 years there, and all these other upper income taxes, do nothing with hedge fund managers. If we let all these through, $3.8 trillion, at some point, we're going to end up paying for them, and our concern is that the people paying for it are the people who can least afford it.
I think.
Oh, go on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I do think that a major part of our objection is that we feel it's going to be bad for African Americans. The Republicans have said, for example, on health care reform, that one of the ways they plan to attack it is by through the appropriations process, by starving the provisions. And I think this is the first step right here.
To the tax bill based on how much it will add to the deficit and the fact that it's not paid for is also something that's been echoed by a couple of conservative Republicans, even some Tea Party types like Jim DeMint. Do you feel like that despite your ideological differences, you share some common ground here?
Well, we hope we do share common ground with members of Congress, both House and Senate, who believe that $990 billion is too big of a price to pay. And that, in fact, extending middle-income tax cuts and ensuring that the state tax is not reduced, that is a way, including an expansion of unemployment insurance, is a way to begin to move forward to help turn the economy around. And so I hope that there is some bipartisan consensus with the Congressional Black Caucus on many of these issues.
Just let me say, as it's been indicated before, if you drive the debt up so high, then you're going to have people saying we can't afford traditional programs that we've had. For example, low-income heating assistance. I could see that being a target for the conservatives, saying, well, we can't afford it anymore. Section 8 housing, which already has been leveled out. I could see that being an ideal target, public housing in general. And so what we see is that, as Representative Scott said, when you find the deficit continue to grow, then there has to be cuts. And the cuts, as we see with the philosophy of the Republican Party, what they've said in the past, as a matter of fact, even in our Education and Labor Committee, when the child nutrition bill came up in the House, they voted it down. Health care for 9/11 survivors. Many of the people from my district in Newark went over to New York, voted it down. There is no compassion. And so we will see people saying, well, we just can't afford it. Red ink, cut it. We've even seen in Arizona where they're talking about and are rationing health. The governor just refuses to have certain kinds of programs funded